welcome to the Cinema ATL podcast. The Cinema ATL podcast is a weekly podcast that examines the world of entertainment through the lens of local Atlanta filmmakers. That would be us, your hosts. I'm Michael D. Friedman, and that is
Martin Kelly.
And today we're doing a big movie review. Yes, the newest Marvel movie is now out, and we will be discussing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. But first, Martin, why don't you tell our audience how they can help the podcast out?
Well, they can help out by listening and listen more than once. That'd be great. But no, you can
Just
listen.
put it on repeat when you go to sleep. Yeah.
Exactly. We'd be a good podcast to sleep to if you wanted to do that. But you can listen. But we really would like if you would rate it, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends. And you can do all of those things from whichever podcast platform you like best, whether that's Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, did I say? And also even on YouTube.
Yes, and we also want to hear from you. You can always tweet us at CinemaATL or at Clever Transient, which is my personal Twitter account.
Or hit me up at Marte_real1.
And then don't forget our Instagram, which is at CinemaATL Podcast.
That's right. Or Legacy Internet Media at cinemaatl.com.
Or you can find us printed on newsstands No, I'm just kidding.
That would be cool.
We're going to Legacy Media, but no. Yeah,
that would actually be cool.
Well, anyway, now that you're familiar with everything, every place you can talk to us or talk about us or whatever, let's get into the actual review.
All right. So today's big movie review is the latest Marvel film, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And what?
I said, yup.
Oh, I thought you said nope.
That's a deep, biting commentary that you only get here on Cinema. Yeah.
That's right. That monosyllabic commentary. No, but a brief synopsis is Shang-Chi is the master of unarmed weaponry-based kung fu, and he's forced to confront his past after being drawn into the Ten Ring organization. The film is directed by Dustin Daniel Cretton, who's known for mainly independent films like Short Term 12 and some others. The screenplay,
Just Mercy, I believe.
Oh, that's right, Just Mercy, which was done here in Atlanta. So I forgot about that. Yes, keep it up. Keep the strong commentary up. Screenplay from Dave Callum, Destin Daniel Cretton, and Andrew Lanham. And the story was pitched to Marvel by Dave Callahan and Destin Daniel Cretton. And, this is actually based on a Marvel comic by the name of Master of Kung Fu, which was, quite a ways back. It started in the 70s by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin.
Yes.
And so we'll talk a little bit about the origin of the comic, just very slightly, during the review a little bit, but that's who created the original comic. Stars Simu Liu, Tony Luong. I can't believe I'm doing this because he's a great actor, and I'm going to talk about him a lot. But Tony Luong, Aquafina, Minger Zhang, Fala Chen, and Michelle Yeoh. See, I could say that one. And I'm sorry, I did not bring the names with me of the cinematographer or the fight choreographer, which I really should have. I know, because those are really important elements of the film, obviously, and we usually do.
Cinematographer was Bill Pope.
That's right, Bill Pope,
who you might know from things like The Matrix and Baby Driver.
Oh yes, one of our favorites.
Spider-Man 2. A lot of. He's a very good action DP. Yes, and then the stunt coordinator. I don't have his name either. Sorry,
No, and I read about him, and I should have.
failed on our note taking.
I
But
totally blew it on that because he certainly deserves a lot of credit,
right, no,
which we'll talk about.
and I did watch. I just watched a video saying who it was, and I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, I'm totally.
He'd
I won't
previously
catch it.
worked with Jackie Chan,
Right, one of Jackie
and
Chan's guys.
yeah, for some reason I can't remember his name. Sorry.
So that gives you a little flavor of the type of action
Right.
that's going to
Yeah.
be found in the
Well,
film.
a flavor, yes, definitely, definitely a flavor of it. Before we move on to talking about the film, I did want to talk about the director, Destin Daniel Cretton, who sounds like a white guy, is actually is actually Asian himself. He's Hawaiian, actually, I believe,
Yep,
and
as are the writers. The
as
writers,
other writers who
yeah,
also have white people names.
Anglo sounding names.
So it's really cool that we talk about diversity and people telling stories of their culture and actually hiring the people that live it to produce it. So Marvel did a good job here, hiring a diverse crew and cast and writers and everything. So just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it was good to know that about the writing team and the directing team. So certainly, we do talk about that quite a bit on the podcast. So it's good to see it in action. And so I guess next we'll just let's start talking about the movie itself. And I know some of these other topics will probably come up during the discussion.
Right.
So, Mike, what did you think of the film?
Um, this is a tale of two films for me. The first half I absolutely adored and I thought it was the best Marvel movie ever. And the second half kind of slows down
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it still makes an enjoyable movie, but it lowers it in the Marvel rankings, if you ask me. But the setup of this film was tremendous. I enjoyed meeting these characters, getting to know who they were. The chemistry between Aquafina and Simu Liu is just terrific. Of course, Aquafina just kind of shines in
Oh yeah,
everything
yeah,
she does, but
absolutely.
um, I really enjoyed their chemistry together, and it really made for a fun movie. And the action sequences, and you mentioned, we talked about, the Jackie Chan influences. Like, what I love about this film is it has all these elements of martial arts films, but all the big sequences are different.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
different types of martial arts. So like
Right,
the scene on the bus, which kicks the action off, which you've seen in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything. And by the way, we're going to avoid spoilers as much as possible. If we do delve into spoiler territory, we'll warn you ahead of time, but we're going to try to avoid them. But anyway, the bus scene is very much a Jackie Chan fight.
hmm. Hmm.
He even uses his jacket
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
Jackie Chan did
totally.
in his movies. And then you get to later in the film, and it feels like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
there's other sequences that are just kind of like more like the more modern day, even like
Yeah.
Matrix type. Not really going to the Matrix level of cool
No, no,
camera movements, but feeling like the Neo
or even
future
almost
stuff.
Mortal Kombat elements
Right,
too.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And so that's what I really loved about the film, is that it could take all these elements and and show like just the variety of the it was almost like an homage to kung fu movies. Like
Right,
it was
right, and
almost like it
not
was like
just one style.
right, it was
Exactly.
paying tribute to all of these other movies and like, hey, let's put what if all of these martial arts movies, these kung fu movies, were put into a superhero movie, and then that's what you
Right,
got, and that's and really love that, and then the cast, also, just like I mentioned, Aquafina and Simu Liu's like relationship, but like you said, Tony Leung or Leung, he's terrific as the villain, and he's one of the best villains in Marvel history, if you ask me,
right,
because he's
right.
such a full fleshed out character.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so that's my initial thoughts on the
Yeah,
movie.
you just sucked all the air out of the whole room. Because no, I agree with what you're saying. I really enjoyed it too. Now it's funny you mentioned A Tale of Two Movies, because I do sense that, I do understand where you're coming from with that, but I didn't sort of, I didn't let that sort of kind of imbalance take me out of it as a
Right.
whole. I let the ending have its day without spoiling my overall feeling, which I do agree. It's not quite as, it's not quite as superior as sort of the opening is.
Well, what I would say is that the first part of the movies, it is a superhero movie. It does take place in the Marvel universe. It does have magical stuff in it, but it feels more grounded. And
Mhm.
then something happens about halfway through the movie where a certain character is introduced, kind of
Yes,
comic relief type
yes,
thing,
yes.
and it kind of just turns the movie on a dime. Like literally, like in the
It
scene, it's even like, who
it
is that?
does.
And then,
Hmm.
oh, it's this
Hmm.
comic relief, and then all of a sudden, it feels different. And it took me a long time to get used to that once it came about. So it
No,
didn't
yeah,
really
yeah.
ruin the ending for me. It just threw me off guard, and then it introduced a bunch of other elements that were very more fantastical, which makes sense if you talk about the trajectory of the movie itself, but it still kind of felt different than the
Well,
beginning, right?
true. Exactly. I agree with you that it almost throws you off. That part for sure, and no spoilers, but it does almost throw you off. Not only for not only for the fact that that character is comic relief, that character,
Right,
is a familiar character, and we've dealt with that character before, but then not in this manner.
right,
You know what I mean? And so then this manner even puts it even to a more sort of left fieldish, kind of segue almost at that point. But I agree with you that it doesn't spoil the film overall, but it does sort of throw that wrench in it and does kind of throw you off a little bit. But I'll say something about the fantastical elements. I think it also is in keeping with not only the movie and the story that the movie's telling, but also sort of the idea of um, the cinematic universe, which is introducing this concept of other other realities. If I
right.
is the best way to say it, I guess, without getting too into depth about what happens.
Yeah.
But so
Without,
yeah,
yeah.
so I think it's good and in keeping with that. But I want to say the Tony Leung character you mentioned, he's a fantastic villain, but the performance, you're talking about a villain, a guy who's the villain, but yet I completely empathize with him. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like he gives such a good performance in this that I mean, he, in my opinion, as good as everyone else is, he saves this movie by himself. You know what I mean? He doesn't save it because it's a decent movie already, but I'm just saying he really makes the movie.
He elevates it. Yeah.
It-
Yeah, his
you know,
presence elevates the entire
right?
film. Right.
And
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's really a tremendous performance, and I think I'm a big fan of him anyway. But from his work with Wong Kar Wai,
Hmm.
even John Woo, if people are fans of John Woo's old Hong Kong films, they'll remember him from
Right.
Hard Boiled, Bullet in the Head, and in Wong Kar Wai movies, which is a completely different kind of movie than John Woo movies, and he's at home in those films as well. And so this is a genuinely fantastic actor who is probably being seen for the first time by a lot of people, which I think is great.
Oh yeah, and that's, I mean, that's what we talk about when we talk about diversity and representation. That's why it's important, because now the general public is introduced to what a good actor he is, and maybe they'll go check out some of his other roles, and some of the other great performances that he's had, like you've mentioned. So, I mean, this is why people, fight so hard for diversity and film and entertainment, is because, you know there's great talent out there amongst everybody, and we don't need to limit ourselves to just, these
Right.
standard uh, Hollywood actors taking every role necessarily,
No, totally.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I
As
guess
good as some actors are who could play any role, they don't have to play every role.
right, right, exactly. I mean, this kind of goes to the one of the conversation points that you wanted to discuss is kind of this being the first Asian led Marvel film and how big of a deal that is. I mean, we it took forever for us to get Captain Marvel to get the first female led one, and then and then now we had Black Panther breaking boundaries there, and then now Shang-Chi. So I really love the fact that Marvel is opening it up to the whole world, I think they're doing it in the right way, as opposed to we've talked about other movies that we've seen where they just
Right,
let's
right,
let's just throw people into this movie to get that Chinese box office
right.
number up
Totally,
and things like that.
totally.
Like I think we watched it was in The Meg was one of the ones where it was just like,
Yeah,
well, let's just randomly throw these people in there, or even like even Kong versus Godzilla like had
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Or the
Um,
original Skull Island is where we really called it out.
right, right,
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is a really well done way to introduce it. To introduce this type of hero, and the fact that what I really enjoyed about this version of it is that it it's a Marvel movie, and yet it's not. They're not using some of their other characters as crutches. You know what I
right.
mean? There's nobody. You're not getting. I mean, till there may or may not be cameos, but what I'm saying is they're not relying on that to try and
Right,
bring people into this story. They trust this story is going to resonate enough, and they trust this hero um, as a strong enough draw to the universe to stand alone. So I really enjoy that. So to your point about them doing it right, I mean, I think this is exactly how you do it. You just do it. You know what I mean?
right,
Instead of like faking it, almost like what we're talking about is some of the sort of ham-handed attempts to sort of shoehorn um, you know diversity into a film, whereas this is like, this is who we're dealing with. That's it. Boom, you'll love them, and then and trusting the audience to resonate.
right.
So, but then you've got favorites like Aquafina, who's certainly an audience favorite for a while now. She's really been building her um, you know credibility with the audience, and she's really good in this as well. And then Simu Liu, who I know has had a very successful Netflix show. I wasn't as familiar with him because I've never seen that show, but he
Right.
was very solid in this film.
And I believe he got his start as a stuntman
Well, that makes a lot of
before he
sense.
broke into acting. I think he's been doing acting for quite a while now, I think he did get a start as a stuntman. Um, but yeah, he's a fresh face, really. I mean, and I've not seen the Kim's Convenience, which is the show he's on,
Hmm. Hmm.
either. But I've heard it's really good. But
It's one of those. It's in the like recommended. So
yeah,
like always popping up, but I never dig into it because it's a series, and that requires a lot of time commitment because there's several seasons to it. So,
right.
but yeah, yeah, exactly. I haven't
But
watched
I
it
thought he
myself
did a
yet.
great job, and I thought he was
Well,
charismatic, and
mhm,
he definitely held his own as the lead, and
right.
definitely somebody you want to root for. So
Definitely. And then the woman who plays his sister, Minger Zhang, apparently this is her first role, and she was really
oh
good.
really?
It,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah. She was really good. I think she's got a martial arts background, which was kind of obvious from the film. She could handle herself well with those types of scenes. But from what I understand, this is her first role, so she did a great job for that. And
Yeah,
then
she was great. I thought
and
she
then
was
you
terrific.
Yeah, and then you got like obviously Michelle Yeoh, who's a veteran, and audiences do know her, I'm
Right.
sure by now, for you know all of her work of late. But she's very good as always. But I really, one of the reasons I say Tony was one of the you know biggest biggest draws for the film, the one that really made the film elevated, but also Fa La Chen, who plays Li, Shang-Chi's mother. She's really terrific in the film, and
Hmm.
helps kind of give that humanity to that villain that is really, necessary for us to empathize with him at all. And she did a fantastic job in her role. So the
Yeah.
cast, I really can't, you really can't, you know, say any more about how good they were. They were just fantastic, which was a great surprise.
And I also want to give a shout out to Ronnie Chang, who is
Right.
one of my favorite characters in a smaller role.
Hmm.
He's really good, and hopefully we get to see him come
Definitely.
back at some point because I thought that would be a fun character to
Yeah, I think he
play around
will. I think he will because yeah, it was a fun. He had some fun moments when he was on board. But I guess next, let's talk a little bit about the fact that we kind of touched on it being a kung fu film, and then we talked in the past about Marvel and how they're also another thing they're doing right is creating these movies that are not all the same, and part of
with. Right,
that is because almost all the movies are a different genre. So they're all superhero movies, but yet they're all a different genre. And so this, of course, like you mentioned, is kind of a homage to classic kung fu movies. And
right.
so, and like you said, they do mix the styles, which I thought was really, a good thing to do, and sort of brings that brings that different sort of element to it, that it's not just some, by the numbers kung fu movie.
Right.
They actually create these other elements to it. So it's a Jackie Chan style, classic style, and then you know, modern style, that kind of thing. So,
Well, and they do
I,
it obviously enough, and they do it intentionally enough that you know that
yeah,
it's not just all over the map due to lack of focus or lack of attention to detail. This is actually these scenes take place in certain places, and they are the action fits into those times and places in the
right,
story, and it is done intentionally, and you can tell that it's done as an homage and a loving homage to these different style movies. And that's why I that's why I was like, especially like the first hour of this movie where it's like pretty much three big action fight sequences in a row,
hmm hmm
and they're all different. And that's why I was saying this is the best movie Marvel movie ever. This is so awesome that I'm seeing this like all these different things occur on screen, and that's why I loved it so much. And that's why even though it does take a turn at a different, about halfway through the movie, and then there's this huge big action sequence in the third act, which of course that's not a spoiler because every Marvel movie has a big action sequence in the
Are
third
you
act.
sure everyone does?
Everyone does, and this fits the Marvel mode
Right,
of an action film, right?
right,
So now you're taking the Marvel fight sequence into it, right? Which is not a bad
yes,
thing. It's
right,
just different than the beginning, which was like kind of so different for me for a Marvel movie that it was making me just like filled with happiness that this was like happening. Like these kind of more grounded. I mean, it's not really grounded because
right,
they're
exactly,
mystical and magical, but like just like this, the fight choreography is so good, and it was actually one of the things that I did enjoy about Black Widow too was the fight choreography there too, and how it was grounded
right, right,
in the points in Black Widow where it was grounded, and there's points in Black Widow where it just jumps the
right,
shark, but
right.
yeah, so
But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, again, they continue to do really well with mixing the genres
right,
enough to make the movies feel different. I mean, 25 movies in, you want them to feel fresh, and like you said, this did feel really fresh, right off the
right.
bat, which I think was, a credit to their planning and sort of their plan, and of course the filmmakers who lovingly, you know built this homage to these type of films. So I thought it was really well done in that regard.
No, I totally agree with you on that, and yeah, that's one of the things we feel like that Marvel does right as compared to like a DC their universe they're trying to build, they don't seem to take the time to like really give the movies their own identity, other than trying to set up the next movie. And now Marvel does that. Of course, they're trying to set up the next movie,
Hmm.
but they do it in a way that it's not totally directing the path of the plot of the film, or forcing characters to act out of character because there's a plot point to get to.
Right. No, totally. I think, yeah, I think the difference is they have stories to tell that happen to include their IP, right? Whereas
Right.
DC is like, we've got IP. What do we do with it?
Right.
And then they try to figure out what to do with their IP. Whereas Marvel is comfortable that they can tell stories and include their IP into the stories.
um Wanted to point out one thing. We've been talking so much about the stunt choreography. I did finally find the stunt coordinator. It's Bradley James Allen is
Okay.
his name.
Oh, good job. Good job.
And unfortunately, it looks like he just died recently. I just saw that.
Yes, he did, and that's the thing, and that's what I was like blocking it in my
Oh
head,
man.
because the at the end of the movie you notice that that dedicated to
Oh, I didn't see
credit,
that one.
and that's who it was. And so when I didn't know it in the theater, but then when I later I saw that it was him. And so yes, unfortunately he did. So that's why I was kind of blocking it. I wanted to talk about him, but then I totally, in the
Right.
last minute trying to put the notes together, I totally left him out because I wanted to include some of these other topics. But
And he's done
thank you for getting,
so.
yeah, thanks for getting his name, because
He,
he certainly deserves to
he's
be
done some
known.
great stuff. Yeah, like Scott Pilgrim versus the World,
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Kingsman movies. Yeah, some great stuff here. Kick Ass.
Yeah,
Um,
he was totally great, in terms
uh,
of putting this action together.
yeah, I mean the action in this movie, the stunt choreography is just so top notch, and this is kind of why I wish there was a an Oscar for stunt choreography, or choreography in general. We talked about this before, I think, but the the choreography between characters in a fight scene or even a dance scene, I think you could make
Oh
good
yeah, yeah.
a good. There's so much artistic
Oh yeah, that was
stuff to this,
that was enchanting. I mean,
right?
that scene was really enchanting. And so yeah, it was, part of the immense charm of the film, and especially in the beginning parts of the film, for sure.
Right. I mean, this is so. Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I just. Yeah. I just. That's what made me fall in love with this movie, and just had me grinning ear to ear, well, especially the first hour. So
Definitely, definitely. And then again, it doesn't look like, I don't want to glow so much that we don't recognize that it does tail off a little bit,
it has its
as
flaws, yes,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, without getting into spoilers, it's really hard to talk about what those flaws are.
Right. Right.
But I would say that the fun of the movie, the artistry in the movie, um, the action in the movie, it overshadows definitely overshadows the flaws that it may have.
Definitely. Definitely. I agree. So I guess, we got to give our grades to it, or do
Yep.
we want to talk about that other topic? I think we might not want to even talk about that other
Yeah, I think
topic.
we're good for now. I think we should give our grades.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first because I normally go second. I'm going to
Okay.
say I'm giving it a B plus. It's almost to an A minus level, but it's a B plus for me.
I'm going to give it an A minus, and that's completely nostalgic for Tony being in the film and being such a big part of the film. I mean, I really feel strongly that I'm so happy he's in this, because, like I said, I have been a fan of his for many years. And we'll probably talk about him in a forgotten film one of these days, but because I like to pick foreign films sometimes, but.
Right.
I'm just happy that he's getting the kind of recognition, uh, that he certainly deserves, as an actor, because he's so fantastic. So A minus for me.
Um, Yeah, the B minus is probably my first initial viewing ranking or grade. I'd probably going to maybe enjoy it more on subsequent viewings because I won't be so thrown off by the change that happens.
Right.
But I mean, right now, if I were to like put it in our Marvel rankings, which we did after Black Widow, it would definitely be within the top third, probably in the top 10 somewhere.
No, I think it would totally crack my top 10 for sure as well. As well.
Yeah. So I mean, that's about all we have to talk about with Shang-Chi. What did you think of the film? Why don't you let us know? You can either tweet us or you can get on Instagram. Let us know what you thought. Talk to us on Facebook. Whatever. We'd like to hear it.
And you can use more than one word.
Yeah. Yep. Yup. You can. And yeah, so I guess like we said, please share, please do all those cool things. We also want to thank Eureka Failure for providing the music as they do each week for us. We really appreciate what they give us. And Martin, what are your final words of wisdom this week?
Well, today, I don't know if I've used it before. I may have, but I'm going to say it again just in honor of sort of Eastern philosophy. So this is a quote from Buddha, and it's not my typical sort of inspirational quote, but it does make you think. And here it is. The trouble is, you think you have time.
Yup.
So let that sink in, and let it sink in a positive way, though. Let yourselves know that we can't waste it. We do have time, but we can't waste it. We need to make the most of all of it.
That is too true. So hopefully we'll be back again next week. We've been taking a couple weeks off here and there, but we're a mostly weekly podcast. We can have repeats every once in a while. People, get off my back. So we'll see you next time on the Cinema ATL podcast, and have a good one.